Athanasi 10 Beta Grammar Lecture. In this grammar lecture, we will review what was covered in 10 Alpha, namely the future indicative, infinitive, and participle middles. We will add the asigmatic future formation, or the certain verbs that don't have the sigma in the future, as well as a review of the aspect tense matrix, review of interrogative adverbs, and impersonal complement clauses of de and ex estin. Let's begin. As we saw in the last chapter, you have the sigma attached to the stem of the present plus the normal present endings. The differences will be in the alpha and the epsilon conjugations, where the vowel, the alpha vowel or the epsilon vowel, is linked then to an eta. And of course, remember, Amy is what's called semi-deponent. In the future, it will be deponent, passive in form, or in this case, middle in form, active in meaning, as there is a separate future passive form. We don't have to worry about the future passive at this stage. So as we introduced last chapter, you'll have your indicatives as well as your future infinitive, as well as your future participle middle. So, as we've covered before, future indicative middle, simple future middle active, while lucis thigh, which is the future infinitive middle, perspective aspect, middle voice, no mood, to be about to, or finna ransom. It's ransom because luo in the middle does mean ransom or loose for oneself, which you could probably figure out if you're kidnapping someone and you're going to pay the ransom, you're loosing that person for yourself. And of course, the difference between the future infinitive and the future participle, one is simply going to be in a state of going to do something, while the future participle is in the state of going to do something. The future participle may be used to express a purpose clause or a complement clause, often preceded by hos. In English, we usually use the simple infinitive. For example, I will remain. Notice this is the asigmatic future. We'll cover that in a second. So as to be in the state of being about to watch the tragedies, or I will remain in the city to watch the tragedies. It is a translation issue. So I will lead you toward the theater. Future participle middle form, remember the sexy distractor will always be the first, called the weak aorist or the first aorist, where you end up with sigma plus alpha. So the answer, of course, is number 4. Future indicative middle form. That's a tough one. They're all middles. Yeah, no, oh, no, epsilon augment, oh. Epsilon augment, oh. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is either going to be 2 or 3. Time is a precious thing. Now, we did cover in that last section what's called the asigmatic future. There are regular futures, which we've already seen in the middle, which are rather straightforward. Deltas and thetas go to sigmas. Same for zetas. Pi's and psi and phis go to psis. Kappas, taus, and k's go to x's. This somehow makes it interesting. However, there are certain asigmatic futures. They're irregular, so I don't really want to go out of my way to teach them, but I just want to make sure you know about them. And they are done in such a way that you really can't see them on quia. That's why we don't do it. For example, meneso, the sigma gets lost and you end up with this long mark over meno. Menes with these circumflex long marks. They are not really going to be found too often on the National Greek exam. In fact, I would be surprised if they were. But you should be aware of that in the translation when you see those circumflexes. Apocrinomai, I answer, becomes apokrinumai in the future. So it becomes an epsilon contract. These are all become epsilon contracts in the future. Some stem changes. Apokateno becomes apokateno. Apokatenes, apokatene. Very, what's the term? They all become epsilon contracts. I'm not going to really stress out over these right here. Just be aware of them and when they come up. Now, the one thing we do need to stress out with is, just for fun, Amy, which is present indicative active of I am, looks like, in many forms, the future indicative active of Ericomai. It's a super irregular. So, the only difference, of course, for the first two forms, and that's where the only difference comes in at, I am and you are versus I will go and you will be, is going to be a circumflex. That's all the only difference is. The rest of them, between the present and the future. On quia, they will have an acute accent. So in other words, if you see Amy on quia with the acute accent, that tells you that it's going to be the future. Though it's not technically correct, neither are accent marks for that matter. So be aware of that, and you will be seeing the future. They will send something to someone. Well, that's good. So it's going to be future, straightforward. What's this form? That's the aorist. What's this form? That's the imperfect. The aorist won't be on the national Greek exam for high schools. It will be on the college one, but the national Latin exam will have the imperfect. Greek exam will have the imperfect. Will persuade. You see here, will persuade. Piece of cake. I will sail. Piece of cake.
Time is a precious thing. Never waste it.
So moving to the next section, let's talk about the adverbs. These are the adverbs that we've seen already. They have the accent mark on them. Pu, where, pothen, from where, poi, to where, pote, when, pos, how. When you take the accent mark away, it becomes indefinite. Where becomes somewhere or anywhere. Pothen, from somewhere. Poi, to somewhere. Pote, at some time, at one time, pos, somehow, in any way. Just as you would lose these question marks, would be the same way. T without the accent mark becomes, instead of what or why, becomes someone or something. Pardon me, it's neuter. Tis becomes someone. Here, T. Why? Notice you have that because it's a question mark. Oikade. To home. Pote. Question word.
Time is a precious thing. Never waste it.
Finally, let's talk about the impersonal complement clause. We've already seen this in Latin with necessa est, as well as the impersonal verbs such as apportet, it is appropriate, licet, it is permitted, where we will see in Greek it's de, which is impersonal. It is necessary. Always it is necessary. You then look for the infinitive. It is necessary to be, and in complement clauses of the infinitive in Latin and Greek, you have the accusative being the subject phrase. So instead of it is appropriate for we to be, it is appropriate for us to be. It's necessary for us to be equational, manly. Now notice accusative plus no other signal plus equational verb in an infinitive will be an equational phrase. Because after all, as Ms. Simpson taught, what's on one side of the equal sign has to be on the other side of the equal sign. So as the verb Amy is a infinitive to be, we have to have a accusative subject phrase, therefore an accusative equational phrase. Let's go on. Existent, third singular, present indicative active, it is necessary. Day and exestin used interchangeably. You look for the infinitive, to remain. But exestin, it is necessary, is a little different than day, because exestin will take a dative as the subject phrase for us to remain in the city. So, always look for your verb, your finite verb, your indicative verb, then find your infinitive, then your subject phrase. But when you look to the verb exestin, you know you're looking for dative plus infinitive. Well, kiddies, that's the end of 10 beta. Not too much added on. We'll wait till 11 to grab the aorist, strong aorist, which is a little more of a memorization trick, which means I'm going to have that stuff ready for you. Keep doing the great work.
Something completely different.
Remember office hours.